A door splintered off its hinges and crashed inside. A boot stepped over the wreckage. A rifle came up to his shoulder. An old man stumbled backward into the wall and raised both hands. An old woman stood behind him, holding a tin cup that shook so badly the water spilled down her wrist. The man with the rifle did not lower it. He did not speak either. He just stared at the two strangers standing in the kitchen of the home he had paid cash for. He had ridden 11 days through snow to reach that cabin. His name was Eli Burke. He had bought the deed from a county clerk in a town 2 ridges over. He had paid in cash and in 11 days of his life. What happened in that kitchen over the next 4 months would change all three of them forever. Stay with me on this one. The cabin smelled like wood smoke and old sickness. Eli saw that before he saw anything else. 2 iron pots on the stove. A patch quilt on the bed. A pair of boots drying by the fire. He had paid $62 for this place. $62 and a long ride. He kept the rifle up. The old man kept his hands up. The old woman set the tin cup down on the table real slow, like she was setting down a baby. "Mister," the old man said. His voice cracked. "Mister, we ain't armed." Eli did not lower the rifle. "Who are you?" he said. Not a question. A demand. "My name is Henry Mosley. This here is my wife Adeline. We been in this cabin since the fall of '76. That's 3 winters. Yes, sir. 3 winters. Now here's the thing. Eli Burke was not a cruel man. But he was a man who had ridden 11 days through snow to be alone. 11 days. 2 horses lame. 1 blizzard he barely walked out of. He had not come this far to share a roof with strangers. He pulled the deed from inside his coat. He laid it on the table next to Adeline's tin cup. "That paper says this cabin belongs to me. Bought clean from the county clerk. Recorded and stamped." Henry did not look at the paper. He looked at his wife. Adeline's mouth had gone tight. "Mr. Burke," she said. She had read the name off the deed. "We don't have anywhere else." "That's not my problem." "No, sir. It isn't. Believe me." The next thing she said should have ended it right there. But it did not. "We had a homestead down on the Bitter Fork. Floods took it in '75. Took our boy too. He was 21 years old. We walked north till we found this cabin standing empty. Door was already broken. We fixed it. We've been fixing it ever since." Eli stared at her. "You had no claim." "No, sir. We had no claim. We just had nowhere." He should have shouldered the rifle right then and walked them out. He did not. He set the rifle butt down on the floor and leaned on it. He looked at the patch quilt. He looked at Henry's hands, which were shaking. Not from fear, Eli realized. From age. Henry was past 70. Adeline was not far behind. "You got kin?" Eli asked. "None living. Town. Brewster's the closest. 3 days walking. Less by mule, but the mule's lame." Eli let out a long breath. He had ridden 11 days to be alone. He was not going to be alone tonight. "Sit down," he said. They sat. He moved through the cabin slow. He looked at the chinking between the logs. "Good work." He looked at the stove. "Clean." He looked at the woodpile out back through the small window. Stacked tight, double row covered. The cabin had been kept. Better than he could have kept it himself. He came back to the table. "This is my cabin," he said. "Bought and paid. Sun up tomorrow you walk." Henry nodded once. "Yes, sir. I'll give you what food I can spare. Half a sack of flour. Some salt pork." "Thank you, sir." Adeline did not say anything. She was looking at the deed on the table like it was a verdict. That night, Eli slept on the floor by the door with the rifle beside him. He told himself he was not worried about them. He told himself he just slept better near the door. But he heard Adeline whispering prayers in the dark. He heard Henry's chest wheezing. He did not sleep much. He had bought the right to be alone. He had paid in cash and in cold, and in 11 days of his life. Come morning, he was going to enforce that right. That was what he told himself. Outside, the wind was already picking up. Sunup came gray and mean. Eli was up before either of them. He had already saddled his horse. He had set out the half-sack of flour and the salt pork on the table next to the deed. Henry came out of the back room slow. He was bent at the waist, gripping the doorframe. Adeline followed, carrying a small bundle wrapped in oilcloth. Their whole life, Eli realized, fit in that bundle. "Mules out back?" Eli asked. "Yes, sir. I'll help you load." They went outside. And here is where the morning turned. The snow was up to Eli's thigh. It had come hard in the night. The trees were bent under the weight of it. The mule was standing at the lean-to with snow up to its chest, breathing hard, one foreleg lifted off the ground. That mule was not going anywhere. Henry made it 3 steps off the porch, and his knees gave out. He went down sideways into the snow. Adeline made a sound Eli would remember for the rest of his life. Not a scream. A small, low sound that came up from somewhere under her ribs. She dropped the bundle and got down beside him. "Henry. Henry, get up." Henry's lips were already going blue. The cold was on him fast. Eli moved without thinking. He got under Henry's arm. He dragged the old man back through the snow toward the porch. Adeline grabbed the other side. The 3 of them stumbled up the steps. Eli kicked the door open with his boot. He laid Henry on the floor by the stove. He stood over him, breathing hard. He looked at Adeline. She was on her knees pulling Henry's wet boots off. Her hands were shaking. Her face was wet, but she was not sobbing. She was working. Eli walked past her. He picked up the deed from the table. He folded it once. He put it back inside his coat. "He stays till he can walk," Eli said. Adeline nodded without looking up. "She stays too." She still did not look up. But her shoulders dropped half an inch. That was the only sign. Now here's the thing about that day. Eli did not say you can stay. He did not say I changed my mind. He said he stays till he can walk. That was a man giving ground without admitting he was giving it. He went back outside. He brought the mule into the lean-to and rubbed it down. He checked the horse. He brought in firewood, twice as much as he needed for one night. He came back inside. Adeline had Henry under 3 blankets. Henry's color was coming back. Eli sat down on a stool by the door. He kept his coat on. "You eat?" he asked. "Not yet. There's biscuit in my saddlebag." "Thank you." She went out and got it. She broke it in 3 pieces. She gave Henry the biggest piece and Eli the next biggest and kept the smallest for herself. Eli almost said something about that. He did not. The day passed slow. Henry slept. Adeline sat by him and mended a sock. Eli oiled his rifle and pretended not to watch them. The fire crackled. The wind howled outside, but it could not get in. The cabin held. By afternoon, Henry was sitting up. By evening, he was eating broth. By night, he was telling Eli stories about the Bitter Fork flood, about the boy they lost, about the cabin they had walked away from. Eli listened. He did not interrupt. 3 days went by like that. Then a week. The snow did not let up. The mule got stronger. Henry got stronger. Nobody mentioned the deed. Nobody mentioned the morning Eli was going to put them out. On the 8th night, Adeline cooked rabbit. Eli had snared too. She made a stew with potatoes from a root cellar Eli had not even known was there. Henry said grace. They ate at the table together. 3 plates. 3 cups. The lamp burning low. After supper, Henry went to bed early. Adeline washed the plates. Eli sat by the fire with a tin cup of hot water. The cabin was quiet. The wind had finally stopped. There was just the pop of the fire and the small clink of Adeline setting a plate on the shelf. Eli leaned back. His shoulders dropped. His hands rested open on his knees. For the first time in 11 days. For the first time in maybe a year. He felt the something inside him let go. He almost smiled. Adeline came over and sat across from him. She did not speak. She just sat. He thought about saying something. About the deed. About the spring. About what came next. He did not. He took a sip of hot water. The fire popped. It was the quietest moment of his life. Then he heard it. A horse coming up the trail. Eli sat up. The tin cup went down on the floor by his boot. Adeline's hand stopped halfway to the lamp. Henry called out from the back room, low and quick. Eli? Eli, that you outside? No, Eli said. He stood up. It ain't me. He took the rifle off the wall. He moved to the door. Hooves. 1 horse. Slow, steady walk. Not a man trying to sneak. A man who wanted to be seen coming. Eli opened the door 6 inches. A rider in a long coat sat on a tall bay horse at the edge of the clearing. He held a rolled paper in one gloved hand. He was waiting to be invited closer. He was the kind of man who knew how this was supposed to go. Hello, the cabin, the rider called out. Hello yourself. Are you Mr. Eli Burke? Who's asking? My name is Garrett Sloan. I work for the Helena Land and Cattle Company. I have a notice for the resident of this property. Eli felt the hair on the back of his neck rise. Step down off the horse, he said. Slow. Hands where I can see them. Sloan did. He walked across the clearing with the paper held up high. Eli led him onto the porch. He did not let him into the cabin. Sloan handed over the paper. Eli read it by the lantern light spilling from the doorway. It was an eviction notice. The Helena Land and Cattle Company had filed claim to the entire Upper Valley. 3,000 acres including this cabin, this trail, this clearing. They had a patent dated 2 months back. They were giving all current residents 30 days to vacate. Eli read it twice. This is my land, he said. I have a deed. Your deed is for 200 acres in the wrong county, sir. The line was redrawn last summer. Your county clerk had no authority to sell what was not his. That's a lie. Sloan did not flinch. Take it up with the territorial court if you wish. The company will bring suit if you're still here in 30 days. They have hired men. They will be back. He tipped his hat. He walked back to the bay horse. He rode out. Eli stood on the porch with the eviction notice in his hand. This is where it turned. Believe me when I tell you. Up to that moment, Eli Burke had been a man with a problem he could solve by saying yes or no. Stay. Go. Eat. Don't eat. He had been the one with the deed. He had been the one with the rifle. He had been the one with the choice. Now he was just another man about to be put off his land. He went back inside. Adeline was standing by the table. Henry was up on his elbow in the back room. Eli laid the eviction Notice on the table next to the deed. They say my deed is no good. They say this cabin is in another county, and the man who sold it to me had no right. Henry sat all the way up. Helena Land and Cattle. That's the name. Henry's face went hard. Adeline saw it and went still. Mr. Burke, Henry said, I need to tell you something. Tell me. I was a county surveyor. 22 years. I worked the Bitter Fork. I worked the Upper Valley. I know this country. Eli waited. That valley was patented to a man named Caleb Reed in 1848. Reed homesteaded it. Reed sold it to a man named Vance in 61. Vance died without heirs, and the land reverted. The county clerk sold it as reverted land. That's where your deed comes from. Then the Helena Company is lying. They are not lying. They filed a patent claim 2 months back. But the patent only stands if the land was vacant. If there was a recorded prior sale, their patent is void. Then I'm fine. No, sir. You are not fine. They will come anyway. They will burn the cabin down before any judge sees the paperwork. They have done it before. Eli looked at the old man. How do you know they have done it before? Because they did it to a homesteader on the Bitter Fork in 75. The same flood that took my farm. Only it was not the flood that took most of those farms. It was the company's men. With kerosene. The cabin went dead quiet. Adeline put her hand on the back of the chair. Henry looked at the floor. Now Eli understood. The Bitter Fork had not just driven Henry and Adeline north. It had hunted them. He pulled out a chair. He sat down hard. How many men they got? 6 or 8. Hired guns. Led by a man named Coyle. How long we got? They said 30 days. They will come in 15. Eli looked at the rifle. He looked at the deed. He looked at the eviction notice. He looked at the old couple he had been ready to put out into a snowstorm a week ago. Henry. Yes, sir. You still got that surveyor's eye? Yes, sir. Then you and me got work to do. If you're still with me on this one, hit that subscribe button. Because this is where the story turns into something none of us saw coming. And I want you here for the rest. Eli rolled up the eviction notice. He put it on the high shelf above the stove. He kept the deed in his coat. Outside, the wind had started up again. But it did not sound the same anymore. It sounded like something coming. The next morning, Henry sat at the table with a piece of charcoal and a flat strip of pine. He drew the valley. He drew the ridges and the creek and the old game trails. He marked where Caleb Reed's original cabin had stood. Gone now, 50 years gone. He marked the wagon road the company would have to use. There was only one. The valley pinched down to a narrow draw 2 miles east of the cabin. Cliff on one side. Creek on the other. Any man riding into the upper valley had to come through that draw. That's where they will come, Henry said. That's where we meet them. Adeline did not say a word about meeting anyone. But she went to the back room and came out with a wooden box. She set it on the table. She opened it. Inside was a bundle of papers tied with twine. Surveys. Plats. Notarized statements. Henry's life work. This is the recorded plat from 61, she said. Caleb Reed's original patent. Vance's purchase. The county recorder's stamp. I kept it because Henry said one day somebody would come for the rest of the valley, and we would need it. Eli picked it up. He had never been so close to a piece of paper that mattered so much. Who notarized this? Judge Whitcomb. Out of Helena. He's still on the bench. Then he can vouch for it. He can. If we get word to him before Coyle gets here. There was a boy in town who rode mail. Eli knew him. He had stayed at his father's stable on the way up. The next morning Eli rode down the mountain with a letter tied inside his coat. He left at dawn. He was back in 4 days. The boy had taken the letter to Helena. Judge Whitcomb had answered. The answer was in Eli's pocket. The judge would ride out himself. He would arrive in 8 days. 8 days. Coyle and his men were probably 6. Now here's the thing about a man like Coyle. He did not ride up shouting. He rode up easy. Eli saw the dust on the morning of the 7th day. He was on the ridge above the draw with Henry's old Hawken rifle laid across a rock. Henry was below in the draw with the Platte. Adeline was at the cabin with the eviction notice and a kettle on the stove because she said no man, even a bad one, was going to come into her kitchen and not be offered something hot. That woman. Eli counted 7 riders. Coyle was in front. Big man. Black coat. Rifle across his saddle. They came through the draw at a walk. Henry stepped out from behind a boulder with the Platte in his hands. Mr. Coyle. The riders pulled up. Coyle's hand went to the rifle. Don't, Henry said. There's a man on the ridge with a rifle on you. And a judge 8 days behind you with a writ. I'm here to give you a chance to ride out before either of those things matters. Coyle laughed. It was not a real laugh. It was the sound a man makes when he is deciding whether to draw. Old man, get out of the road. This is the prior recorded patent. Calabrese, 1848. Vance, 61. Reverted, 78. Sold to Eli Burke last month. Filed and notarized. Judge Whitcomb is bringing the certified copy. You burn this cabin and you go to prison. You shoot me and you hang. Coyle stared down at him. That paper don't mean nothing if you ain't here to wave it. He drew his rifle. Eli fired. He did not fire at Coyle. He fired at the rock 6 inches from Coyle's horse's hoof. The horse reared. The rifle went sideways. Coyle hit the ground hard. The other 6 men froze. Eli stood up on the ridge. He levered another round into the chamber. Next one, center mass, he called down. Ride out. Coyle was up on one knee. He was staring at Henry. Henry had not moved. Henry was just standing in the road holding the Platte. You'll burn for this, old man. Maybe. But not today. Coyle got on his horse. He rode out. The other 6 followed. The dust hung in the draw a long time after they were gone. Henry sat down on a rock and put his face in his hands. Eli came down off the ridge. He put his hand on Henry's shoulder. He did not say anything. He just kept his hand there. The judge arrived 8 days later. He rode in alone with 2 clerks and a federal marshal. He looked at the Platte. He looked at the deed. He looked at the eviction notice. He took the eviction notice between 2 fingers like it was something dead. This is fraudulent, he said. I will see Sloan disbarred and Coyle indicted. Mr. Burke, your title is clear. Mr. Mosley, you are a credit to this territory. He stayed for supper. Adeline made rabbit again. The judge ate 2 plates. Before he left, he looked at the 3 of them sitting around that table. Eli, Henry, Adeline. And he said something Eli would remember. I rode up here expecting to mediate a dispute. I find a household. That word. Household. It sat in Eli's chest a long time after the judge rode out. Spring came late and all at once. The snow on the high ridges held until the last week of April. Then in 3 days it was gone and the creek ran high and brown, and the willows pushed out yellow buds. Eli walked down to the lower meadow and saw the first green coming up through the dead grass. He stood there a long time. He had not, in 11 years on the frontier, ever stood still and looked at grass. Henry was strong enough by then to chop kindling. Not full logs, but kindling. He sat on the porch most mornings and split small sticks and stacked them in the lean-to. Adeline planted a kitchen garden along the south wall of the cabin. Onions, potatoes, some kind of bean she had carried in a small cloth pouch all the way from the Bitter Fork. Eli rebuilt the door, the one he had splintered the morning he arrived. He took it off its hinges. He cut new boards from a fallen pine. He planed them smooth. He hung the new door on heavier hinges. It opened easy. It closed soft. No more splintering. Adeline watched him hang it. "That's a good door, Mr. Burke." "Eli." She nodded. "Eli. Now here's the thing about the next few months. There was no drama in them. No writers. No notices. No rifles. Coyle was in a federal jail. Sloan had run for the territories. The Helena Land and Cattle Company had folded. The valley was quiet. And the three of them just lived. Eli hunted. Henry surveyed the back acres and helped Eli mark where to put a new fence. Adeline cooked and mended and sang sometimes when she thought she was alone. Eli heard her one afternoon through the cabin wall. A hymn he did not know the words to, but recognized the shape of. He did not tell her he had heard. In June, Henry got short of breath walking up from the creek. In July, he could not walk up from the creek at all. By August, he was in bed most days. Adeline sat with him. Eli sat with him too in the evenings. They did not talk much. There was not much to say. Henry knew. Adeline knew. Eli knew. Henry died on a Sunday morning in early September. The window was open. There was a meadowlark singing somewhere in the high grass. Adeline had her hand on his chest. Eli was standing at the foot of the bed. Henry opened his eyes one more time. He looked at Eli. "Take care of her." "I will. I know." He closed his eyes. He breathed twice more. Then he did not. Eli buried him on the south slope under a tall pine. He cut the headboard himself. Adeline picked the words. Henry Mosely. Surveyor. Husband. He knew the land. The first night after the funeral, Adeline did not come out of the back room. Eli sat by the fire alone. He almost went to her. He did not. Some grief is a room a person needs to sit in by themselves. In the morning she came out. Her eyes were swollen. She put on the kettle. "I'll cook," she said. "It'll help." "All right." She cooked. He ate. They did not talk about Henry. They talked about the garden. The fence. A coyote that had been at the chickens. Days went by. Then weeks. The leaves turned. The creek got cold. The first snow came the second week of October. Light, just a dusting. Adeline stood at the window and watched it. Eli. "Yeah. I don't have anywhere to go. I know. I'm not asking to stay forever. I'm asking what you want me to do." He looked up from the boot he was oiling. He looked at the woman who had handed him a piece of broken biscuit and kept the smallest piece for herself. The woman who had stood in the road of her life with nothing left and not once asked him for anything she did not earn. "Adeline," he said, "I rode 11 days through snow to be alone. You know what I found." "What?" "I found I did not want to be." She put her hand to her mouth. She did not cry. She just nodded. "This is your home," he said. "Long as you want it." She sat down at the table. She put her hands flat on the wood. "All right then." That was all she said. Believe me, some endings come with speeches. This one did not. This one came with a woman putting her hands flat on a table, and a man going back to oiling a boot, and a fire popping in a stove and snow starting to come down outside a window in a cabin in the upper valley of a country that had taken almost everything from both of them and given them, somehow, each other. Eli Burke had bought a cabin. He had thought he was buying solitude. He had thought he was buying the right to be alone. What he had bought, it turned out, was a household. The door he had splintered was hanging straight now. It opened easy. It closed soft. And every morning, when the light came through the window and Adeline was already at the stove, Eli understood something he could not have understood 11 days into a snowstorm with a deed in his coat. A man does not choose where home is. Home chooses him.